हरे कृष्ण। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। So we welcome you all to the sixth day of this course, Self-Evaluation Tools on the Path of Bhakti Part 3. So this is actually not the sixth day of the course, this is the 18th day of the course. Part 1 we covered in 5 days, Part 2 in 7 days, now Part 3, this is the sixth day. Hopefully we'll, in another 4-5 days, we will complete the course, complete the book. So this book is based on, this course is based on the book Madhurya Kadambini, as most of you would already know about. So we have been discussing the fourth shower of nectar, which is about Nishta, steady devotional service. Yesterday we started discussing on this theme, but we could cover only half of it. The other half we will try to cover today. So the first theme that we discussed on this topic of Nishta was that how is it that in the second chapter we discussed about Anishtita Bhajana Kriya. We saw that Bhajana Kriya is of two types, Anishtita Bhajana Kriya or unsteady devotional service, and then Nishtita Bhajana Kriya or steady devotional service. So we discussed the 6 stages of Anishtita Bhajana Kriya, from Utsahamayi to Ganatarala to Vyuda Vikalpa, Tarangarangini, Niyamakshama and then Niyamakshama and Tarangarangini, I am sorry. And then naturally one would expect a discussion on Nishtita Bhajana Kriya to start. But interestingly, the very next chapter is a long chapter on Anartha Nivritti. In fact, out of these 18 discussions, 11 discussions we had on the chapter on Anartha Nivritti only. So why is this? Why is Anishtita Bhajana Kriya, and then instead of starting Nishtita Bhajana Kriya, there is a middle chapter on Anartha Nivritti. So this is based on Bhagavatam's teaching only. Of course, Rupa Goswami also says, Adav Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha Bhajana Kriya Anartha Nivritti, then Nishta. And Bhagavatam also says, Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantasto hi abhadrani vidunoti suhritsatam. So Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna, through the process of hearing and chanting, Hridyantasto hi abhadrani happens. So hearing and chanting here refers to Anishtita Bhajana Kriya. Bhajana Kriya but unsteady. So by unsteady Bhajana Kriya or Anishtita Bhajana Kriya, Hridyantastopi abhadrani vidunoti. That indicates Anartha Nivritti. Then Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati ruttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu, when almost all the anarthas are destroyed within the heart through Anishtita Bhajana Kriya, nityam bhagavata sevaya, then what happens? Bhagavati ruttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. The Nishta manifests, or steady devotional service manifests after Anartha Nivritti. So what happens during this 6 stages of Anishtita Bhajana Kriya is, gradually by the process of hearing and chanting, the unwanted desires within the heart get destroyed gradually, and over a period of time, when the Rajogun and Tamogun is destroyed, the Rajoguni and Tamoguni impressions are destroyed, one develops steadiness, which is a natural byproduct of Sattva or Sattva Gun. So we saw the next theme is that what are the symptoms that one has reached the stage of Nishta? How do I know if my practice, if I have reached the stage of Nishtita Bhajana Kriya or steady devotional service? He says, Nishta is characterized by absence of 5 obstacles. So we saw these 5 obstacles yesterday. Laya, Vikshepa, Apratipatti, Kashaya and Rasaswada. Laya refers to sleep, a tendency to feel sleepy during japa maximum, Shravanam little less and Kirtanam still less. So this is due to influence of mode of ignorance. And Vikshepa refers to distraction towards mundane topics while performing japa or Shravanam or other such services. And this is due to Rajogun generally. And Apratipatti refers to occasional lack of taste in performing devotional activities despite the absence of Laya and Vikshepa. Just some occasional lack of taste. Then Kashaya. Kashaya refers to being troubled by past bad habits during the stage of devotional service. That is called as Kashaya. That could be due to Rajogun and Tamogun. And finally, Rasaswada. Rasaswada means when the opportunity for sense gratification is available, one gets distracted from devotional service. So these 5 kinds of obstacles are absent during the stage of Nishtha, because during the stage of Nishtha, Tada Rajastamo Bhava Kamalobhadayaschaye Chetayeter Anaviddam Sthitam Sattve Prasidati. Because during the stage of Nishtha, the influence of Rajogun and Tamogun are gone, which are characterized by lust, anger, envy, greed, illusion and pride. These 6 are symptoms of the presence of Rajogun and Tamogun. And at the stage of Nishtha, due to Anartha Nivritti being almost done, the influence of Rajogun and Tamogun are almost gone. And one gets situated on the platform of Sattvagun. So, this is what we see when we reach the stage of Nishtha. Actually, it is mentioned that by practice of bhakti, one transcends all 3 modes. Mamchayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. But as we saw yesterday, before transcending the 3 modes by practice of bhakti, one first transcends the lower 2 modes, Rajogun and Tamogun. And this happens at the stage of Nishtha. So once at the stage of Nishtha, the influence of Rajogun and Tamogun is destroyed. This is the neutral stage. Then at the stage of Ruchi and Asakti, positive attachment is developed towards first the process of devotional service, and second at the stage of Asakti, one develops positive attraction towards Krishna, and which matures into Bhava and Prema, spiritual emotions towards Krishna. So, and then we also saw from Bhagavad Gita that how these stages are indicated even in Bhagavad Gita, in the 7th chapter, 28th verse, Yesham tu antagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam dradavrata. So in this, punyakarmanam refers to practice of bhakti, especially anishtita bhajana kriya. Punyakarmanam leads to antagatam papam, destruction of anarthas. This indicates anartha nivritti, which is also indicated by dvandva moha nirmukta. One transcends the stage of dualities. Then subsequently it leads to bhajante mam dridavrata. Dridavrata bhajan means determined practice of devotional service, steady practice of devotional service. This is Nishtha. So this is not just indicated in Bhagavatam, this is indicated in Bhagavad Gita also. And then the third theme that we discussed yesterday was how one can reach this stage of Nishtha only when one overcomes the 10 offenses. So in this theme we discussed 4 stages, which is unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence and unconscious competence. So 4 stages where unconscious incompetence is the kind of offensive chanting which is done by the Mayavadis and other materialistic people who do not know the glory of Krishna, and they just ridicule the holy name or chant the holy name while having all kinds of improper philosophical understanding about Krishna, which may be quite offensive. They are unconscious that their chanting is improper, and they may not even know about the 10 offenses to the holy name. This is unconscious incompetence. And the second level is conscious incompetence, which is a beginning level sadhaka who knows about the 10 offenses, but he is not able to consciously avoid them. But then when such a sadhaka hears carefully about the 10 offenses, understands the 10 offenses carefully and tries to avoid them, then he comes to the next stage, which is called as namabhas. Namabhas is when the devotee is conscious that yes, I want to avoid these offenses, he is able to avoid them. But when he becomes careless, he slips back again into offensive devotional service. So this is called as namabhas. But when one practices on the level of namabhas very carefully, then he reaches the stage of Shuddhanam, which happens at the stage of Nishta. So at the stage of Nishta, he is able to chant offenselessly, unconsciously. Anytime, because of the absence of these kinds of obstacles, Laya, Vikshepa, Apratipatti, Kashaya and Rasaswada, and also his influence, and also because of the influence of Rajogun and Tamogun are gone. So naturally a kind of respectful attitude develops, which is a byproduct of the predominance of Sattvagun. So therefore he naturally becomes very respectful. So there is avoidance of offenses. So therefore at the stage of, one can reach the stage of Nishta only when one becomes offenseless in his practice of devotional service, which comes by diligent, dedicated practice to avoid the 10 offenses while trying to chant, while trying to perform the devotional activities very nicely. So this we saw from the Sikshashtakam also, where in the second verse he says, Namnam akari bahuda nija sarva shaktis tatrarpita niyamita smaranena kalaha etadrishi tava kripa bhagavan mamapi durdaivam idrisham ihajani nanuragaha. In this he says, oh my Lord, you are so merciful that you have invested all your potencies in the holy name and you have made access to this holy name so easy. There are no hard and fast rules for chanting this holy name, but still I am so unfortunate that because of committing offenses, I have not developed any taste for the holy name. So this second verse indicates the stage of bhajana kriya, but anishtita bhajana kriya with offenses, then slowly anartha nivritti happening. Then with the anartha nivritti happening, when one actually overcomes the offenses, he comes to the third stage, which is Trinadapi Sunichena Taroriva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. So where he talks about the stage of Nishta. At the stage of Nishta, because the influence of Rajogun and Tamogun are gone by the practice of devotional service, the nature of Sattva is the manifestation of wonderful qualities of humility, tolerance, not expecting any respect and giving all respect to others. These are symptoms of absence of Rajogun and Tamogun and a predominance of Sattva. So the third verse, actually, this Trinadapi Sunichena, is actually one can practice it only when one reaches the stage of Nishta, because of the influence of Rajogun and Tamogun is gone. So this is where we paused yesterday, and today, now we will continue this discussion further. So the next theme that Srila Vishwanath Thakur discusses is that there are two types of nishta or steadiness in one's practice of devotional service. This is a very interesting topic. He says this nishta is of two types. The first type is called as Sakshad Bhaktir Vartini, and the second type is called as Bhakti Anukula Vastu Vartini. So these are the two classes, two types of Nishtita Bhajana Kriya or Nishta. Nishta means, as we saw, steadiness. So steadiness could be of two types. First is Sakshat Bhaktir Vartini. In this type of Nishta, there is steadiness in practice of devotional activities. There is steadiness in chanting, steadiness in hearing, steadiness in his performance of sadhana. So basically in the devotional practices there is steadiness. And devotional activities can be divided into three categories: bodily, vocal and mental. Kayiki, Vachiki and Manasi. So bodily refers to the various services that we may have, deity worship. They all involve a very solid physical part, and many menial services also we could do, which are within the realm of devotional practice. Then there is vocal. Vocal refers to chanting, kirtan, giving lectures. These are all vocal. Then there is mental or manasi, which refers to smaranam and dhyanam, lila dhyanam, rupa dhyanam, guna dhyanam, nama dhyanam. These are all meditation which are on the level of mind. So some say that it is one reaches steadiness on the level of bodily level very fast first, which means in their physical services which does not involve much of mind, one reaches steadiness. It is very easy to reach steadiness to do the physical activities of devotional service. Then at the second stage one develops steadiness in vocal, and then finally in meditation, dhyanam, smaranam, to reach steadiness it takes a very long time. So this is the opinion of one class of authorities. Whereas the other class of authorities say, no, it is not like that. It depends on the nature of people. For some people, it is very easy to reach steadiness in the physical activities, and for others, it is very easy to reach steadiness in the mental activities. So there is no real connection in that sense. This is the opinion of other set of authorities. Of course, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur does not clearly indicate which category he belongs to, but he presents the opinion of both these categories of people, some of whom believe that it is the development of steadiness is first happens on the bodily level, then vocal, then mental. Other class says, no, there is no such order like that. Okay. So this is about Sakshat Bhaktir Vartini, where one reaches steadiness in the practice of devotional activities. There is a second kind of steadiness which is called as Bhakti Anukula Vastur Vartini. What is this Bhakti Anukula Vastur Vartini? He says, such a person shows steadiness in qualities. He is very steadily humble, steadily free of anger, steadily very respectful, steadily tolerant, steadily not expecting respect in return. These qualities are there. Okay. Now the question is, of the two types of Nishta, which is a reliable type of Nishta? Is it Sakshat Bhaktir Vartini or Bhakti Anukula Vastur Vartini? Like say for example, he says, sometimes we may see a person who is very steady in these qualities. He is steadily humble, tolerant, very respectful, very gentle and never hurting anyone. But such a person may not have steady practice of bhakti. There is no steady practice of bhakti. You know, one day he may complete his rounds at 7 a.m. in the morning, and another day he may be chanting till 12 p.m. at night, 12 a.m. at night. And then one day he may read Bhagavatam, for the next 1 week he may not read Bhagavatam. So when it comes to his practice of devotional service, it may not be very steady. It may be thoda, up and down. But when it comes to exhibition of qualities, very humble, very respectful, very gentle person. So this is one category of person. The second category, if you see, that person is very steady in his practice of bhakti. Literally you can set his watch looking at him. If he is sitting for chanting means 5 a.m. in the morning. If he is getting up after completing his 16 rounds means 6:45 in the morning. So you can literally set your watch looking at that person, very steady in his practice of devotional service, every day attending Mangalarti, every day chanting his rounds at the right time, performing steady DT worship and everything. But the only problem is very rude person, very disrespectful, very crude in his behavior and very unapproachable character. So these are like two extreme presentations that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is presenting. Now Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is asking us, what do you think is a reliable symptom of Nishtha? On one hand, he's a very gentle, sweet, respectful, tolerant, humble person, but the only issue is his practice of bhakti is little up and down, not very steady. On the other hand, you have a very steadily practicing devotee, but very rude, arrogant person. So which is a more reliable symptom of Nishtha? So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, the second category is a more reliable symptom of Nishtha, not the first. Even though most of us might feel, how come he is showing all the good qualities? Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvair gunays tatra samasate sura. All good qualities are seen in him. And in this person, good qualities are not seen. He may be practicing steady bhakti, that is one thing, but where are the qualities? In this person, only he is also practicing bhakti, but the bhakti is not steady, but qualities are steady. So definitely he must be the more advanced person. But he says, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur disagrees with this. He says no, and he is going to give a very valid reason for this. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, no, the second person who exhibits steadiness in his practice of devotional activities, he is the person who has actually reached Nishtha. He says that inexperienced perception cannot substantiate the truth. One who is not experienced in the science of bhakti will judge it in the other way. He will judge the person. As we saw, if you remember, when we were discussing Vaishnava Aparad, we were seeing that the main cause of Vaishnava Aparad is to judge devotees based on their absence of secondary qualities. You see, this is classic case. He has the primary quality of Nishtha, which is steady practice of devotional activities, but the secondary qualities of humility, tolerance, these qualities are not seen. But still, if we have judged that no, the other person who may not have the primary quality but have secondary quality, it is a reliable sign of Nishtha, then it means that we have not understood the science very clearly. Why? Because we saw the series. First is Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam Hridyantastohi Abhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. First comes Anishtita Bhajana Kriya, unsteady practice of devotional duties like hearing, chanting, deity worship, etc. It leads to cleansing of heart. When the cleansing of heart happens, Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. When the cleansing of heart happens, then one becomes steady in his practice of devotional service. Tada, at that point of time, due to that steady practice, Rajastamo Bhava Kamalobhadayasche Cheteter Anaviddam Sthitam Sattve Prasidati. At that point of time, the influence of Rajogun and Tamogun are destroyed and the person becomes steadily fixed in Sattvagun. And as a result of the removal of Rajogun and Tamogun, actually manifests the good qualities of humility, tolerance, respect, not expecting respect in return. All these qualities are characteristics of the absence of Rajogun and Tamogun and the predominance of Sattvagun. So therefore, in that person who is showing these qualities without a steady practice of bhakti, indicates those qualities are probably, not probably, are most likely manifest in him not due to his practice of bhakti. So probably such kind of qualities are mainly due to his past practice of a Sattvaguni lifestyle. He may have a very solid Sattvaguni lifestyle to back up. So therefore, I had an idea of discussing a particular theme later, but we will discuss it right now. So therefore, we will discuss this meaning of this verse. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatyakinchana sarvair gunais chatra samasate sura harava bhaktasya kuto mahat gunat manoratena sati dhavato bahihi. So he says, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatyakinchana, where there is akinchana bhakti, where one is steadily practicing devotional service, all the good qualities manifest. So how do we understand this verse? What is the application of this verse? This is a very important theme actually. Because we may apply this verse and say, oh, he is more humble, he is more tolerant, so he must be more advanced than this person who is rude. No, this is not the application of this verse. Because here he clearly says, if those good qualities are seen in a person, those good qualities are steadily seen in a person who has not yet reached steadiness in his practice of devotional activities, then those qualities are not a byproduct of bhakti. They are a byproduct of his past mode of goodness lifestyle, that's all. Not that it is not worthy, definitely that is also worthy, because the nature of bhakti is Krishna promises, Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. He says, oh, for a sincere devotee, I will protect what he has and I will carry what he lacks. So these qualities of humility, tolerance, respectful attitude, not expecting respect in return, these qualities which he has even prior to reaching steadiness in his practice of bhakti, which means these are very favorable qualities. He will not lose it. By his practice of bhakti will protect all those qualities, and when he reaches the stage of nishtha, then those qualities are preserved. But having said that, before reaching that steadiness in practice of devotional service, those manifestation of qualities are not a byproduct of his bhakti. Therefore, the point is, we have already discussed this theme once before, but it is a very relevant theme. Because two people may come to devotional service with different conditioning baggages. You may have a person with very pure Brahmanical background taking up to bhakti, and you may have another person who may take up to bhakti with very severe Rajoguni and Tamoguni background, very heavy baggage. So when both of them take up to bhakti, let's say someone has 100 kilograms of anarthas, the second person, and the first person starts bhakti with only 10 kilograms of anarthas. So both of them are starting. Let's say after 10 years of sincere practice, both are very sincerely practiced, equally sincere. So after 10 years of sincere practice, both of them, let's say, have had 90% anartha nivritti. So after 10 years, both have had 90% anartha nivritti. So the first person who started out with 100 kilograms of anartha, after 10 years of practice will still have 10 kilograms of anartha, because that is 10% of 100. Whereas the first person who started out with 10 kilograms of anarthas, after 10 years of practice and 90% of anartha nivritti, will be left with only 1 kilogram of anartha. So if you see the presence of unfavorable qualities and manifestation of good qualities, you will see in the first person it will be little less, in the second person it will be more. Even though both may have, both devotees' practice of devotional activities may be equally steady. So therefore you cannot say that the second person is more advanced than the first person. That is not a very realistic conclusion. So one has to see the primary quality of his steadiness of practice of devotional activities rather than the manifestation of good qualities or non-manifestation of good qualities or manifestation of bad qualities. One should not take that as a symptom. That is a secondary thing. So therefore, how do we then apply this principle of yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana? So the application of this verse is not objective application. It has to be very subjective application. So what do I mean by objective application and subjective application? Objective application means you take two people, compare their good qualities and conclude, oh, he has more good qualities, so he must be more advanced. This is wrong. This is not the application of this particular verse. So how do you apply this verse? If you take one person, and if, let's say, if you have known a particular devotee for the past 15 years, right from the time before he came to Krishna consciousness and after he came to Krishna consciousness. So if you have known him from the time when he was before a devotee, so you can say in 15 years he has been practicing Krishna consciousness. 15 years before he was like this, but in 15 years he has had such a tremendous change. He had so many bad habits, he has given up all of that. He was very rude, arrogant, but he has become so respectful. But still, compared to another devotee, he may be still little less respectful. But still, compared to his own, compared to himself 15 years back, he has made tremendous progress. How? Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvair gunes tatra samasate sura. Because practice of bhakti manifests all good qualities. So therefore he has developed. So therefore this verse cannot be used to compare the devotional development of two devotees. But you can use this verse as a favorable tool to evaluate how one person has developed in his Krishna consciousness from 10 years or 15 years before till now, by seeing how much good qualities have manifested in him. So you cannot compare two people, but you have to compare one person across different frames of time. So like I remember right from when we were young, very young in our childhood, I don't ever remember my father asking either myself or my sister how much marks other students have scored. So if we take our report card and if he sees that, let's say in my social studies I have scored very less, I have scored only 50 marks out of 100, then my father would ask me, okay, how much did you score last time? And if I say 47 marks out of 100, and he would say, congratulations, so you have improved. So see if you can improve little more next time. This has always been my father's. Never ever, even once in my life, I have ever seen him ask either me or my sister how much others have scored. That was always the concern of my mother, but my father has never asked. So this is the application of this verse also. And if we score, If he had scored less than previous time, then he would ask, oh, was the question paper more difficult than last time? So see if you can improve more. So it was always a comparison with oneself. So, and that is the application of this verse also. It has a very subjective application, and it does not have an objective application. So therefore you cannot say that some person is, he has more devotional qualities, therefore he must be a more advanced devotee. In some cases it may be true, but in many cases we might be wrong also. So therefore it is always very safe to compare the primary quality, which is steadiness in practice of devotional activities, rather than qualities. So this is the application of this verse. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvair gunais tatra samasate sura, like that. So therefore in conclusion, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti says, what has been shown is that laxity or intensity of effort and difficulty or ease in performance of devotional activities such as hearing and chanting is the criteria of discriminating the two types of bhakti, namely steady and unsteady. So what is nishtha? When there is intensity of effort, it is nishtha. When there is laxity of effort in practicing devotional activities, then it is anishtita bhajana kriya. And when there is ease in performance, when we are not struggling to chant our rounds, when we are not struggling to hear, that indicates nishtha. But when there is struggle to hear due to laya, vikshepa, apratipatti, rasaswada and kashaya, if we are struggling to hear, chant due to these 5 obstacles, then it indicates anishtita bhajana kriya. So therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti is very clear. So you cannot conclude that a person has reached nishtha by seeing the qualities, but one should see the practice. Whether there is intensity in practice or laxity of practice. Whether there is ease of performance or difficulty in performance. So when there is ease of performance and intensity of effort, it refers to nishtha. When there is laxity of performance and very difficulty in practicing the limbs, then it is anishtita bhajana kriya. This is the only reliable criterion to understand whether we have reached the stage of nishtha or not. So this is the fifth theme that we have discussed in this theme of nishtha or steady devotional practice. Then therefore we come to the next theme, which is cultivation of good qualities is possible by cultivation of bhakti only. So if you see all across Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, wherever good qualities are mentioned, there is a concurring theme. There is a recurring theme. We will see that theme and we will try to understand what is the reason for such a presentation. For example, we saw this mam chayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitaitan brahma bhoyaya kalpate. In the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, one who practices pure devotional service unto me, he surpasses the 3 gunas and he becomes qualified for liberation. So as we saw, before surpassing the 3 gunas, one surpasses the 2 gunas, the Rajoguna and Tamoguna. And when the Rajoguna and Tamoguna are transcended, then one naturally develops these good qualities. So therefore, when we are always talking about the importance of humility, the importance of tolerance and giving respect to others and not expecting respect in return, to genuinely develop these qualities, one has to actually get rid of Rajogun and Tamogun, which is possible only by practice of bhakti. So if we are insincere in practice of bhakti, then just by externally trying to develop these qualities, it is not possible. But still, he says that this is one verse, wherever when there is sincerity in practice of bhakti, automatically these qualities develop. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvair gunays tatra samasate sura. So development of these qualities is a byproduct of practice of bhakti, because the byproduct of practice of bhakti is first destruction of rajogun and tamogun. Then good qualities immediately develop. And another verse that we see is bhakti pareshanubhavo viraktir anyatra chaisha trika ekakalaha prapadyamanasya yatashnatasya tushti pushti shud apayo anughasam. The 11th canto, the Navayogendras in instructing Nimi Maharaj about the nature of bhakti, they say, three things happen simultaneously. Bhakti, when one makes devotional development, along with the devotional development, two other things are parallelly growing. One is Pareshanubhava, Para Isha Anubhava. Para Isha Anubhava means a direct experience of the Supreme Lord. One starts developing the ability to see the hands of Krishna, and one starts experiencing more and more the presence of Krishna. So Para Isha Anubhava, and the third is Virakti, detachment from material enjoyment. So these three things parallelly develop in a person. So Trika Ekakala, parallelly they develop in a person. So which means that by practice of bhakti, naturally when one progresses in bhakti, attachment to sense gratification and development of good qualities parallelly they happen as a byproduct of one's progress in bhakti. So therefore, for a devotee, if he has to endeavor to develop good qualities, it means sincere endeavor to practice devotional service. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur commenting on this verse, he says, where there is bhakti in the form of hearing and chanting about Krishna, there should be a sweet experience, Para Isha Anubhava. At that time, there should also be an experience of detachment from material existence, material happiness, that is Virakti. These three should arise at the same time for the person who worships Krishna, Prapadyamanasya. And he gives an example, just like Yata Ashnatasyus Tushti Pushti Shuddhapayo Anughasam. Anughasam means with every morsel of food that we take, there is pacification of hunger, there is a satisfaction in eating, and then there is nourishment. You need not take one morsel for pacification of hunger, another morsel for satisfaction, and another morsel for nourishment. In one morsel only, all three are parallelly accomplished. Similarly, by practice of bhakti, one progresses in bhakti, one experiences the presence of Lord, and one develops detachment from material enjoyment. All three parallelly manifest like that. So, and then the other place where this discussion of these various kinds of qualities are mentioned is in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, about the 20 elements of knowledge. So he talks about many qualities. Amanitvam, Adambitvam, Ahimsa, Kshantir, Arjavam, Acharyopasanam, Shaucham, Stairyam, Atmavinigraha, Indriyarteshu Vairagyam, Anahankaram evacha, Janma Mrityu Jaravyadi Dukkadoshannu Darshanam, Asaktir, Anabhiswanga, Putra Dara Grihadishu, Nityam cha Samatittatvam, Ishta Anishtopapattishu, Maicha Ananya Yogena Bhaktir Avyabhicharini, Vivikta Desha Sevitvam, Aratir Janasamsadi, Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam, Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam, Etad Jnanam Iti Proktam, Ajnanam Yad Atonyata. In these 5 verses, Krishna talks about 20 elements of knowledge. Okay, Amanitvam, not having freedom from pride, and Adambitvam means lack of arrogance, Ahimsa, non-violence, Kshanti, tolerance or forbearance, Arjavam means sincerity or simplicity, and Acharyopasanam, worshipping the Guru. Acharyopasanam, Shaucham, purity. Sthairyam is steadiness. Atma Vinigraha is control of mind. Indriyarteshu Vairagyam, detachment from sense gratification. And Anahankara Evacha, lack of false ego. Anudarshanam, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Dosha Anudarshanam, seeing the suffering that is caused due to Janma Mrityu Jara and Vyadhi. Asaktir Anabhisvanga Putradara Grahadishu, freedom from attachment to others and lack of identification with son's wife, one's house, like that. No mamatva. Nityam cha samatitatvam, constant equanimity of mind. Then ishta anishtopapattishu, being equanimous in the face of favorable circumstance or unfavorable circumstance. Maicha ananya yogena bhakti ravyabhicharini, practicing undeviating devotional service unto Krishna. Vivikta desha sevitvam, resorting to solitary places. Aratir jana samsadi, because of distaste for non-devotional association. Adhyatma jnana nityatvam, constant engagement in atma jnana, and tattva jnana artha darshanam, and constant engagement and keeping the mind on the goal of liberation. So these are the 20 characteristics or 20 qualities Krishna mentions as the elements of knowledge in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So both Srila Prabhupada and Vishwanath Chakravarti give a very interesting explanation to this verse. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti says, the 20 factors are to be used for gaining knowledge. Of this 18, the first 18 are for both jnanis and devotees, but the last two, which means constantly meditating on self-realization, aham brahmasmi, and tattva jnanartha darshanam, constantly meditating on the goal of liberation. A devotee does not constantly meditate on the goal of liberation, he meditates on the goal of pleasing Krishna. So these last two are meant only for jnanis, but 18 are meant for devotees. But Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti says, the devotees zealously is enthusiastically engage in, out of these 20 elements, they enthusiastically engage in one element, which is Maicha Ananya Yogena Bhaktir Avyabhicharini, in performing undeviating devotional service towards Krishna. So the devotee enthusiastically engages in this one limb of devotional service. What about the other 17? He says, the other 17 items manifest automatically for those who engage in that one item. The bhaktas do not devote effort to the 17 items individually. This is the tradition. So this is Vishwanath Chakravarti's commentary. So even though 18 items are there, a devotee enthusiastically tries to cultivate the one item, undeviating devotional service towards Krishna, and the other 17 automatically come to the devotee. What does Prabhupada say? Srila Prabhupada says, of all the descriptions of the process of knowledge, the most important point is described in the first line of the 11th verse. Maicha ananya yogena bhaktir avyabhicharini. The process of knowledge terminates in unalloyed devotional service unto the Supreme Lord. So, if one does not approach or is not able to approach the transcendental service of the Lord, then the other 19 items are of no particular value. But if one takes up to devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, the other 19 items automatically develop in that person. And Prabhupada says, this is what Bhagavatam also says, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvair gunes tatra samasate sura. So all the good qualities develop in one who has attained the stage of devotional service. So therefore, either it is Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, it is very consistent in its presentation that one need not individually endeavor to develop good qualities, one has to very sincerely try to practice devotional service, and automatically all good qualities manifest. Another verse where in the series of verses in the 12th chapter also of Bhagavad Gita, from 13 to 20 talks about the qualities of a devotee which are very endearing to the Supreme Lord. So one of the verses we will take as a sample, 12.15, where Krishna says, Yasman nodvijate loko, lokan nodvijate chayah, harsha amarsha bhaya udvegair, mukto yas sachame priyah. There Krishna says, Yasman no udvijate loko. So such a person does not agitate others, nor is he agitated by others. And harsha amarsha bhaya udvegair muktah. He is free from material emotions such as joy, jealousy, fear and anxiety. And Krishna says such a person is very dear to me. In the purport to this, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti says, he quotes again, moreover it is said, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvair gunais tatra samasate sura. One who has unflinching devotion for the personality of Godhead has all the good qualities of the demigods. By this statement it is understood that other qualities which please the Lord also automatically appear by the constant performance of bhakti unto me. Like that he mentions. So therefore, the point is, practice of bhakti, the sustainable development of good qualities and sustainable destruction of unfavorable qualities can happen only on the platform of the three modes. So one can develop the good qualities of humility, tolerance, etc. only by development of goodness and destruction of Rajogun and Tamogun. Otherwise, just by understanding the nature of humility and tolerance, we cannot develop these qualities as a virtue. Now the question is, yes, I understand that only by practice of bhakti, it destroys my Rajogun and Tamogun and enhances the Sattvagun, and then I will develop the good qualities when I reach the stage of Nishtha. I understand all these points. Now the question is, when I am still troubled by the anarthas, as we all know, anartha nivritti is a long stage. It is not very easy to reach Nishtha. Overnight one does not reach the stage of Nishtha. So till I reach the Nishtha, what should be my approach towards these qualities? Should I just say, oh, I will not try to be humble, I will not try to be respectful. When I progress in bhakti, automatically these qualities will come. Should that be the approach of devotees when it comes to developing good qualities? See, we have to understand that in order to reach Nishtha, one of the themes that we discussed was we have to try to practice offenseless devotional service. So in order to avoid offenses, we have to practice respect, we have to practice humility, we have to practice tolerance, we have to practice not expecting respect for oneself. Because if we don't practice all these things, then there is a very good chance that we will offend others. And when we offend others and practice offensive devotional service, we can never reach Nishtha. So therefore, the point is that while we understand that only true humility, true tolerance, true respectfulness, all these qualities can develop only when the Rajogun and Tamogun are gone and Sattvagun is developed. But till that point, a devotee tries to practice humility, tolerance, respect, giving respect to others, not expecting respect in return. On what basis? On the basis of valuing devotional service. He understands that I have struggled so hard day and night to develop devotional qualities, to develop my, I have attended Mangalarti for so many years, day in and day out. By that I have developed, I have acquired so much of devotional credits. But if I offend a devotee, if I am disrespectful towards the scriptures, if I disobey my spiritual master, I will lose all those credits very quickly. So therefore, I don't want to lose all my devotional credits which I have painstakingly accumulated by sincere practice of devotional service. So therefore, the only way I can retain those spiritual credits is if I don't commit offenses. And in order to not commit offenses, I will have to act humbly, I will have to act in a very tolerant way, and I will have to act in a very respectful way. That does not mean I have developed the inner virtue of respect, tolerance and humility. But I am acting in that way so that my devotional credits which I have accumulated is not getting wasted by offenses. So it is just a, in one sense, it is a cost benefit analysis that we are doing. What is the price that I have to pay to act in an arrogant way towards this devotee? What is the price that I have to pay to act in a very disrespectful way towards this devotee? Just like I remember, I was a very intolerant person. I used to irritate others, but I had, while I was in school, and that quality I still have, but while I was in school, I was very intolerant. When someone would irritate me, it would very quickly lead to a fist fight. But at the same time, I used to irritate others. Parere udvega diyachi ekoto diyachi jivera klesha. That was my life, literally. So that way we used to have lot of fist fights and school days, lot of passion we all had. So, but there used to be many of our teachers who were also very strict and rude, and they used to get on our nerves also. But I don't ever recollect in my so many years of school days ever losing my temper over a very strict teacher who was giving me lot of trouble. And there were many teachers like that. And because I was a very naughty child, I would always get severe punishment from my teachers. But never once I remember ever losing my temper towards my teachers, at least in front of them. Is it that I have developed the quality of tolerance of anger as a virtue? No. I was internally anger was there, but I made a very quick cost benefit analysis. If I shout back on my teacher, what will be the repercussion? I will get beaten more severely, I may be suspended, and I will have to undergo so much more tortures. So I understood it is not really worth it. So smilingly I took all that punishment and beating. Simple exhibition of tolerance. Why? Cost benefit analysis. It is not worth it. I made the calculation and they said very costly, I can't afford it. So similarly, when we understand the price of the devotion that we have earned, the devotional credits that we have earned by painstakingly practicing devotional service, then we will understand, I think it's easier for me to tolerate than to act in an angry way and lose my credits. 1 minute of anger, I may lose 1 year of devotional credits that I have gained because he is such an advanced devotee. Why can't I tolerate? Why can't I be respectful? So if we are respectful, then slowly by the retention of the devotional credits because of our respectful dealings, we will progress much more faster. We will overcome the stage of anartha nivritti very fast, and actually the rajogun and tamogun will vanish, and we will develop these qualities of humility, respect as virtues, tolerance as virtues. We will actually become tolerant. So therefore, we constantly hear about these qualities: be respectful, be humble, be tolerant. We are not expected to overnight develop these qualities as a virtue. But if we act in this way, then it is very conducive to protect our devotional credits. Very simple cost benefit analysis, that's all. So in this way, this should be our attitude towards developing good qualities. While we will patiently wait to develop those good qualities as a virtue, but while living on the platform of Anishtita Bhajana Kriya or Anartha Nivritti, we will try whatever it takes to exhibit those qualities to protect our devotional treasure. Whatever treasure we have accumulated, we will try to protect them by acting in an appropriate way. Cost benefit analysis, that's all. So in this way we come to the last section we have already discussed. So therefore, this is like the essence of what we have discussed in this theme of Nishta. So tomorrow I will, before we start the theme of Ruchi, I will start with a very quick recap of what we have seen in Nishta, and then immediately we will start the theme of Ruchi. So that, as I mentioned before, the subsequent chapters are small chapters, so we will complete these chapters faster than the previous chapters. So thank you very much for your patient listening. So I am praying for your association tomorrow also. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur ki jai, Shri Madhurya Kadambini ki jai. Hare Krishna.